Welcome to another Esoteric study on the book of John. My name is Pete Haskins and welcome to my office here. It is a beautiful May morning here in Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin, and it's great to have you with me here. We're going to be continuing on with our study of John, the Gospel of John. I preached on this yesterday and I put out a couple of videos on the study, and I'm very excited about just diving into this and really taking our time with it. It's not going to be a traditional study, go figure. And we're just wanting to just kind of ease our way into this with a specific focus on Gnosticism and kind of returning to some of the roots that I began back in my college days. That I really I got Elaine Pagel's book and read that and was really impacted. And then I went to seminary and I got into Orthodoxy through Charles Ashenon. And ironically, through some of Charles's books, I've got a lot of Charles Ashenon's books in my library, and I found this morning. This is one of the most significant books, studies on Gnosticism by Hans Jonas, called The Gnostic Religion. So we're going to be using this, Elaine Pagel's book, and also a book that I have got now. It is a book called the Gnostic Bible, and it is a compilation of Gnostic writings compiled by and edited by Willis Barnstone and Marvin Meyer, and it was put out by Shambhala in 2003. So the introduction to this is just spot on. There's a section in here about Thomas, and there's a section in here about John. So we're going to be getting into that and using these as a text. So it's great to have you with me, and I had to take my Mr. Rogers sweater off because it's a little bit warm in here. So I'm sporting my Star Wars Ewoks sweatshirt. So welcome. All right, so let's dive right in. Who were these Gnostics? The Gnostics had their historical roots in the Greeks and the Romans and the Second Temple Jews, and there were Gnostics all through the Middle East. It's this the 2nd and 3rd century that we're interested in here is when they were very, very strong. There were Gnostics everywhere. There were Gnostics in Iraq and Iran, and still a little bit. They're called Mandeans, and they're Manichaeans in Europe. They're called Cathars in Western Europe and France, and they were particularly and brutally wiped out in one of the first genocides of Christians on Christians in France. So there's some brutal suppression of Gnostic thought within early Christianity, and all through the history of Christianity. And ironically enough, really the only the greatest source, specific source that we have on Gnostics and Gnosticism, are from the theologians in the early church that were called heresiologists, who basically wrote treatises and works against the heresies. People like Hippolytus of Rome, Pseudo-Tertullian, Epiphanius of Salamis, who wrote, according to Meyer, a particularly nasty piece entitled Medicine Chest, which was an orthodox remedy for every heretical malady. So this was seen as a heresy, and it was brutally put down. I mean, we can't emphasize this enough, on how the Gnostics were really not a welcome part of early Christian thought. So why is that? And why would we have such a brutal reaction to this kind of theology? Well, the early source of the Gnostics was all over the map. They were interested in all religions, and they were interested in finding their sources for their origins, their spiritual origins, which is what they were interested in, from all kinds of sources. They were interested in Jewish sacred literature. They were interested in Christian documents. They were interested in Greco-Roman religions and philosophies. They studied religion from the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Zoroastrians, the Muslims, the Buddhists. They were interested in gathering up all of these and celebrating all of these sources, which is fascinating to me, which is one of the reasons why I'm interested in this, because it speaks to our age. They love to explore this, and Meyer says they recognized that creation stories not only claim to describe what was once upon a time, but also suggest what is now in our own world. So we jump over to the actual text here in John, and let me keep my place here. And the very first chapter here, as we went through last week, in the beginning was the Word, so it goes right back to Genesis. Then skip to verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So he's talking about how there is this dualism within Gnostic thought, that the earth is really in trouble, and this, where we dwell, is a dark place, and there has to be light within it. So Gnostics sought this knowledge, which is what gnosis means. They sought this knowledge. I want to read a passage here from Marvin Meyer, his introduction to this Gnostic Bible. I love introductions to books because they just are. To me, a great introduction has just sources and stuff in it that you just can't even find it. It draws you into the book, and this is what draws me into this book. So stay with me here, and I'm going to just kind of pause as we do this, and then we're going to dive into some more of the text. He writes, consequently, Gnostics provided innovative and oftentimes disturbing interpretations of the creation stories they read. They concluded that a distinction, often a dualistic distinction, must be made between the transcendent spiritual deity. And this is where it veers off from orthodoxy, and you can see this clearly. Between the transcendent spiritual deity who is surrounded by eons and is all wisdom and light, and the creator of the world, who is at best incompetent and at worst malevolent. Yet, through everything, the Gnostics maintained a spark of transcendent knowledge, wisdom, and light persists within people who are in the know. The transcendent deity is the source of that enlightened light and life. The meaning of the creation drama, which Christ is a part of, John connects Jesus all the way back to the Genesis creation story. And so Jesus was there. Now, guess what? We are connected with that. So the meaning of this creation drama, when properly understood, is that human beings, Gnostics in particular, derive their knowledge and light from the transcendent God, but through the mean-spirited actions of the demiurge, D-M-I-U-R-G-E, the creator of the world, they have been confined within this world. So there's a transcendent deity, and then there's a creator of this world. And this creator of this world is mean-spirited, and it has entrapped us. He says the Platonic aspects of this imagery are apparent, aren't they? And then he ends with this. Humans in this world are imprisoned, asleep, drunken, fallen, ignorant. They need to find themselves, to be freed, awakened, made sober, raised, and enlightened. In other words, they need to return to gnosis. And that is what John is talking about here in terms of Christ being this source. What does he call it? For the Mandeans, John the Baptist is the Gnostic hero, but for Christians, it is obviously Jesus, and Jesus has been placed here to awaken us. So this Jesus is more than just the flesh and blood Jesus. Jesus is the Christ, is the one who comes to awaken us. And throughout this passage and the rest of the first chapter here, we have John the Baptist coming in and saying, "It is not me. I am not the one. It is not I," rather. And Jesus goes around the rest of the chapter, and he chooses his disciples. And these disciples, he goes around, and I want to read this one passage, particularly about Philip and Nathanael, and I want to read this. This is how the chapter 1 ends from the Gospel of John. The next day, Jesus decided to leave Galilee, finding Philip. He said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew, Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "He is a true Israelite, in whom there is nothing false." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. How do you know me? All right, gnosis. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You shall see greater things than that." He then added this, "I tell you the truth. You shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." So you have this awakening of these disciples. They're not yet apostles, but they're being awakened. So the role of Christ is paramount in this, as Meyer says that he is this, what does he call it? The Gnostic Savior or Revealer, as he specifically says. Let me read this little section here. The role of the Gnostic Savior or Revealer is to awaken people who are under the spell of the demiurge, not as in the case of the Christ of the emerging Orthodox Church. And here's the rub. Not as in the case of the Christ of the emerging Orthodox Church, to die for the salvation of people, to be a sacrifice for sins, or to rise from the dead on Easter. That is the Orthodox view of Christ. The book of John goes a completely different angle. And that's one of the things that we're talking about here. The Gnostic Revealer in the book of John discloses knowledge that frees and awakens people, and that helps them recall who they are. When enlightened, Gnostics can live a life appropriate for those who know themselves in God. They can return back to the beginning, when they were one with God. I love that. Such a life transcends what is mundane and mortal in this world and experiences the bliss of oneness with the divine. So it is a pursuit Oh, I'm taking my glasses off. I'm getting serious, right? It is a pursuit of this knowledge that we have within us. And it is an awakening, right, of the knowledge that is already here, that we were born with. And apparently the early church fathers, not necessarily the Cappadocian fathers and those, but I mean, the early church had to suppress this because it was against the what they had been preaching about Christ, which is that Christ died for your sins. And I, in my own personal theology, have always been more attracted to this awakening. And it's what I do. It's what I've always done in terms of my preaching and my own spiritual life. It's why I'm interested in the Jesus prayer. It's why I've been interested in orthodoxy, trying to get past all these layers, of orthodox teaching that, especially Protestantism, that is just, to me, it's just so, it can be so empty. And I want you to understand that this is an opportunity for you to awaken. And throughout this study, we're going to be talking about different ways of awakening. And it's taken me a good 2 decades to get to this point, but I really feel like this awakening is happening. And we need this message today that the world around us indeed does feel like it's fallen, doesn't it? The world around us feels like it's in rough shape. And Myers talks about this in later on in this introduction, and I want to finish with this, talking about this pursuit of knowledge within a fallen world. This is very serious stuff that they're talking about. Myers talks about comparing the difference between this Gnostic viewpoint of the world that is really antagonistic and anti-divine, he says, and therefore anti-human in nature. He compares it with our modern dilemma and what some of the existentialists really open our eyes to. And in particular, the existentialists such as Dostoevsky, Kafka, Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, but also the ones that are less Christian, like Sartre and Camus, and really says that the main difference here is that the world that we are thrown into is not just anti-divine and anti-human nature, but it's an indifferent one. He says only the latter case represents the absolute vacuum, the really bottomless pit, he says. Ancient Gnostics and modern existentialists may both be nihilistic, he says, but we modern folks in our post-Christian world, he calls this a post-Christian world, face the more profound abyss, the uncaring abyss. For Gnostics, there is light in the darkness and hope in the abyss. But for us, this is why this is serious, and this is why I'm wanting to focus on this in this study, is because we are up against it even more so than the Gnostics were. Because when we look into that abyss, the Gnostics looked into that and saw a glimmer of light and saw that knowledge that they were pursuing. What Myers is saying here, and I think that's quite profound, is that when we look into this abyss that we see all around us in our politics and in the world, and how dangerous things are, whether or not you believe in climate change and all these things that are happening in the world, we are looking into this and we see indifference. And we have to pursue this enlightenment. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in doing, is looking into this book of John and realizing that this pursuit of this knowledge is available to us. Have hope, because this pursuit of knowledge, this transcendent knowledge of the Creator God, same Christian God, we don't have to leave Christianity. It's here, and it's in the Gospel of John. It is in the accepted canon. The word canon originally meant ruler in terms of how things measure up. It is in the canon, and it's right there. And John is saying what Jesus had, what Christ had, you have. Now go for it. So stay with me. I'm excited about this. Comment, share, and we'll start on chapter 2 next week. And just stay focused. Be thinking more and more about meditation and prayer, and about that knowledge that you already have within you. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to earn a degree. It's there. And we're going to find it. All right, blessings to you. See ya.